This is an ABC News special.
The search for Bin Laden is at the highest priority.
He's a very difficult and elusive target.
You're dealing with people who can change appearance, obviously can change identity.
This basically stays the same, the nose, the eyes, and the lips.
He can run, and he thinks he can hide, but we're not going to give up.
Tonight, the inside story of the greatest manhunt of the century. Where could he be? Is he even still alive? New leads and valuable clues revealed for the first time in the hunt for Osama Bin Laden. Now from Ground Zero, John Miller.
Good evening. This is a site that has become so familiar to the country and the world over the past 6 months. Ground Zero, where thousands of civilians lost their lives, where brave rescue workers lost their brothers and sisters, where America, at least for a time, lost part of its innocence, and where tonight a memorial to the men and women who died here was illuminated for the first time. Two beams of light reaching to the heavens as the Twin Towers once did. In so many ways, nothing has really been the same since that day 6 months ago. There is little dispute that this was the work of Osama Bin Laden and his terrorist network, Al-Qaeda. Tonight, we focus on the hunt for Bin Laden, a son of great wealth, a battlefield legend in Afghanistan in the 80s, a wanted terrorist in the 90s, and now a mass murderer whose very crime has literally ignited a war.
The brothers who carried this out, may God accept them. After the first plane, they were happy and thought that was it. I told them, wait, wait. After a while, they announced another plane has hit the World Trade Center.
In a videotape discovered at an Al-Qaeda hideout, Osama Bin Laden is recorded gloating about his masterpiece of terror, the murder of more than 3,000 people on September 11th.
Get out of here!
So if the plane hits the building here, the portion of the building above will collapse. That was the most we could hope for, the most we expected.
The tape was yet another clue about where Bin Laden had been, but offered nothing about where he was. Since September 11th, Bin Laden has been a wraith, a ghost who appears on videos and intelligence reports only to vanish as U.S. forces try to close in. Is he dead or alive? Deputy Attorney General Michael Chertoff says they just don't know.
You know, I think you can assume that if we had the ability to capture him or kill him, we would do so. And without getting again into things that are confidential, I would say that the search for Bin Laden is at the highest priority of what we're doing.
For years, Bin Laden has demonstrated the ability to hide out while maintaining a high profile. From the time I interviewed Bin Laden in 1998 to his calculated release of Al-Qaeda-produced videotapes that followed September 11th, much of what the public has seen or heard about Bin Laden is only what he intended. Terrorism expert Bruce Hoffman.
The trouble is Bin Laden, I think, knows how to manipulate the media to portray himself as the David against Goliath.
This is America, where it was hit very badly and in its own house, and the greatest buildings were destroyed. We thank God.
On October 7th, the first day of the U.S. air war in Afghanistan, Bin Laden released a tape that had been prepared in advance. In it, he claims that the U.S. was using the September 11th attacks to make war on all Muslims, not just the Taliban and Al-Qaeda.
Their aim is to wage war against Islam in the name of terror.
He is constantly striven to cast the struggle that he's engaged in as a clash of civilizations.
After 2 months of withering air attacks and ground assaults on Al-Qaeda strongholds, Bin Laden was a man under pressure. December 26th, another Bin Laden tape surfaced. Bin Laden looked sickly and gaunt. He was emotional, at one point on the verge of tears while praising the hijackers. And parts of his message sounded like the words of a man who knew his end might be near.
The end of America does not depend on the poor servant standing before you, and it does not matter whether Osama is killed or remains alive. The awakening has begun.
That was the last time you saw Bin Laden. His silence has fueled speculation that he's gravely ill or even dead. Since the video stopped, the only traces of Bin Laden have been kept secret. Slim clues picked up by soldiers and spies and satellites, and many of those leads suggest Al-Qaeda's chief is alive. Mid-December, Tora Bora, Afghanistan. Afghan fighters reported hearing Bin Laden's voice crackle over a two-way radio, urging his men to fight on. Claims now backed up, our sources say, by a key Bin Laden lieutenant. Anas al-Libi was one of the FBI's 22 most wanted terrorists. After his capture at Tora Bora, sources say he told American investigators that Bin Laden had been with him there. Vince Canestraro is a former CIA counterterrorism official and ABC News consultant.
The substance of what he told U.S. interrogators is that Bin Laden was at Tora Bora and that he turned over command of Al-Qaeda at Tora Bora to him, to Sheikh al-Libi himself, and then left.
ABC News has learned that CIA officials believed al-Libi knew more than he was saying about Bin Laden's whereabouts and future plans to attack America. U.S. officials turned al-Libi over to Egyptian intelligence, an agency that in the past has been accused of using torture to obtain information. Tonight, al-Libi is still being held by the Egyptians, but they have received no substantial new information. January, Syria. More clues to suggest Bin Laden was alive. Syrian intelligence agents secretly monitored a satellite telephone call in which a Bin Laden relative living in Syria said she had spoken with the Great One.
They never mentioned Bin Laden by name. Sometimes he is also alluded to as the Sheikh, sometimes as the man in the mountains, but most often and most recently as the Great One.
ABC News has learned just 3 weeks ago, the U.S. military received what it considered to be reliable information that Osama Bin Laden, traveling from eastern Afghanistan with just 2 or 3 other men, had arrived in the province of Logar, but U.S. scouts were unable to pinpoint his location. Then, just days later, and a short journey away in Gardez, American special forces moved in on what they believed would be a small pocket of Al-Qaeda fighters.
Up here, you get a better angle. Shoot it.
They were met with an ambush. The battle that is now winding down is the most fierce resistance the U.S. forces have faced since the war began. If Bin Laden isn't here, and if he isn't dead, then where is he?
We know where he's been. We know he's operated in various places in the Middle East and, of course, in Afghanistan as well.
Bin Laden could have escaped northeast Afghanistan into neighboring countries, or over the border in Iran, protected by a government that the U.S. believes has funded Al-Qaeda. Some believe he may have fled the region to Somalia, a lawless place where Bin Laden could find safe haven. But just how would a man who is as infamous as Osama Bin Laden escape Afghanistan without detection?
You know, you're dealing with people who can change appearance, obviously can change identity, have substantial resources.
It is something the FBI and the CIA have already considered. We asked Bob Rios, a forensics expert who has developed composites of criminals for law enforcement agencies across the country. So if you were Osama Bin Laden and you were trying to pass through looking like somebody else, what are the features you would get rid of?
Well, obviously I'd get rid of the facial hair. That would be a start.
So you'd lose the beard and the mustache.
Right. So there are a lot of ways that you could change him, but no matter how you change him, this basically stays the same. The nose, the eyes, and the lips are going to stay pretty much the same.
Using the same computer program, the CIA created this composite, the picture the U.S. military dropped in leaflets all over Afghanistan to remind people that if Bin Laden is alive, the Americans want him. In a moment, we'll take you to Osama Bin Laden's own backyard.